issue.
I'm
Right
starting to
on.
feel like I need a
Right
new
on.
background. I don't think Delaware is quite on point for this estimate, this episode, but the IT crowd and Office Space, that pretty much sums up all of the IT movies.
Yeah, for sure.
I like how it looks like Peter's about to hit my head. Yeah.
Uh,
I can't think of one single other funny IT movie now that I'm.
Well, the greatest one is Nick Burns, your company's computer guy
Yeah.
from SNL.
Yeah.
Duh.
Duh.
Oh, that's a good one.
That is.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
should I do this one just because this has been my day?
Give him a shout, but
Right.
oh yeah, it's 7 minutes too. Let's give him a shout.
Beaker.
I think I have his number.
Dude, I love Beaker.
I love Beaker.
That's class. Have you seen the videos of him singing Bohemian Rhapsody or whatever it is? Like,
No, but I need to go see that. I need a little Beaker in my life right now, man. I'm telling you.
Through the, because I started programming in the mid 90s and kind of watching the progression. I mean, Visual Basic or whatever, or Q Basic back in the day is pretty, because it's like 10, run. I mean, it's pretty straightforward what it does. But,
Yeah.
I was doing ABAP programming, which was a lot of 4-character German abbreviations for table names and all this other, and that. So it required a lot of documentation, but as things got more and more robust, you have to worry about disk space with your code and everything like that. The way people spell out their object names and function names and stuff, was like, it's actually almost normal human readable. Like, I can look at this thing and kind of like, I know what this does.
I have in a glass case at my parents' house my dad's thesis, which is on punch cards. And I'm not even exaggerating. He did his thesis on punch cards. He went into like social work for a long time, but like his original thesis was programming with punch cards. And I was like, it's nuts.
It is nuts.
My brother just grabbed, like, they had this early computer called the Senior Partner. IBM put it out. It was a
Uh-oh.
John?
Is this where we make a joke about turning it off and back on again?
Yeah, hey, reboot, dude.
Unplug it. Plug it back in.
Wiggle it.
Welcome back to the Construction DorkCast. In episode 13, we bring in our friend Darren Young from Hermanson and turn the tables on Jeff to talk about the soft skills needed in IT and tech adoption. As usual, we have some laughs along the way while also drawing out the real-world experience and knowledge from these two thought leaders on what it takes to build a sound tech strategy, as well as how to connect with those field workers who make our companies realize the revenue so we can all get paid. As always, we ask you to join us live in 2 weeks for our next episode, and thank you for listening.
And we're live for episode 13 of the Construction Dorks. Oh, the humanity. Oh, it's going to be a fun episode. Our guest today is Darren Young. And actually, after this intro, yours truly is going to turn himself over to being a guest because, well, as we all know, this is my area of expertise and one I've been looking forward to. So without further ado, Travis, why don't you kick us off with, I don't know, maybe a thought of the day along with a cocktail.
Oh, the thought of the day. Well, it seems like there's a lot of thoughts that could be thrown around today, but my drink of the day is bringing back another old favorite of mine, J. Henry, distilled. Oh well, this is bad. Distilled up in Dane County, Wisconsin, not too far from here. I'm really looking for this episode too. I was more. If you try to think about the IT world, I think a lot of times we divide IT and IS. I was a little bit more on the IS side in my previous role doing the systems and programming and stuff. So it is still near and dear to my heart. But got two of my favorite guests on now that Jeff's on the guest side. So I'm really looking forward to this discussion.
Well, thank you, Travis. And for those of you playing the home game, IT is information technology, IS is information systems, which is how we used to break this thing up. Although that's showing your age, because I don't know when the last time I heard those two broken up that way at all.
Good point.
Right? Trent, you take it away, because damn, it feels good to be a gangster.
Doesn't it though? thought of the day first, right? So it's like when life gives you lemons, complain they weren't limes. Is that a good thought of the day?
Just mic drop, be done.
All right. Well, I got the Flaviar shipment that came in. I've got a Purveyor Series double wood rye.
Nice.
Nice. There it is.
I expect a review on that one because I'm looking to order a bottle and that looks good.
It's pretty good. It's pretty light. It's not a heavy hitting bourbon, but
does it have the normal spiciness that you kind of get out?
It does, yeah, and it's finished. The wood chips they finish it with are pecan. So
interesting.
Yeah.
Well, all right. That follow that one, Jonathan Marsh.
I will, but I'm going local and I'm going to Altered States again. Okay, so this is like an Erie brewery, and this is their stout barrel bourbon. And I think this is the fastest I've ever polished off a bottle. And it's not because there was an election yesterday. I mean, like I've enjoyed having drinks of this. It's really good. It's like, it's got a little bit of a rye. It's got their bourbon in it. It's been double casks. It's really dark. And for like one of those local distilleries that's, sometimes local means not that awesome. Altered States, almost everything they do is awesome. And their gin is so weird that like I literally went and bought 3 more bottles in case they changed the flavor of it, because it's just like I'm not going to get that back, so really love them. I tell you what, man, when I started out as an engineer, I started out in a branch office that had no IT, and I think everybody knows that if you're good at computers and there's no IT person, it's you. That's like the hint, is if there's nobody in IT that's in you're the good computer person, you are now officially IT. And it helped, man. I like at Spader, I was their IT and then their CTO, but I don't think that I ever dived as deep in talking to Jeff. Talking to you, Jeff, you constantly will like talk over my head and I'll feel bad. And then I'll jump on the internet and be like, okay, what the hell was he talking about? I'm going to look that up real quick. So the next time we have this discussion, I don't have to feel like a noob. But I think this is a great subject. I know I was talking to Josh Bowen about 6 months ago, and the biggest thing he said these soft skills in understanding them is super important to doing both construction tech and IT, and even just working like in some of these sort of crossover between technology and like older traditional trades. So I'm really interested to see what you guys think.
I'm with you. Darren, I failed to maybe provide, I don't know what you're drinking today, where you're coming to us from. Give us a little bit of background, what you're drinking, and your thought of the day before we get this thing started.
All right. Well, I told my family that you guys all like to, we're trying to recreate the bar atmosphere, and then she saw one of your prior podcasts. Oh, those are all manly men. You need to have an alcoholic beverage. And then y'all brought out the whiskey bottles, like, whoa, they drink a lot. So, well, yeah, I don't do you do that when you're out? No, I don't. Anyway, I'm still at the office, so I'm gonna go with a non-alcoholic beverage, but this is Werner's. Werner's is one of the oldest ginger sodas. It was developed in 1866. It's 20 years older than Coca-Cola.
Wow.
But it was developed by a pharmacist out of Detroit, James Werner. So you can kind of tell where I'm originally from, the Midwest. I'm a Yooper in the Upper Peninsula, not to be confused with the Mitten. Those guys are trolls because they live below the bridge. But so I'm drinking my Werner's today.
I have to say,
I was not at the office.
That probably pairs really well with a good whiskey. A Jack and Ginger or something like that, or a bourbon and ginger, a nice Kentucky Mule.
Yeah, it's you can find it at like Target or Albertsons, Vons, Safeway stores. Typically, it's pretty cheap in the Midwest, Michigan. You go outside of there and it's priced like it's a delicacy.
I feel like it's like the Yingling of ginger ale, man. You get
that was my goal.
And it's
I was
all of a sudden expensive.
I was hoping to say it was older than Yingling, but I looked at Yingling and it's like, okay, I can't do that. So at least I can beat Coca-Cola.
Yes.
But no, just a little bit about me. My background is actually more manufacturing. I'm not an IT guy, although everyone thinks I am. and just ended up in construction, about a dozen years ago. I said I like this topic because a lot of the roadblocks that we encounter aren't technical. I can fix technical. I'm not a psychologist. Sometimes it's harder to fix the people part of the problem, but a lot of it's just being a good observer of the human condition and how different people operate and function. I think what sets me apart is I actually used to work in a manufacturing environment. I used to do production, and I've been that guy who broke the computer at 3 o'clock in the morning in the graveyard shift, and there's nobody to help. And I think I'm going to get fired if I don't figure it out the next day before the day shift comes in. And so I think I've got a particular empathy to a lot of the users who, are subject to the technology we try to push on them. I've just got a little different perspective from that aspect, but that's kind of my thought overall. I can I share several examples throughout this conversation.
Yeah, we'll hit those for sure, because that's what I like about you, Darren, is when first thing you said is you don't identify as an IT guy, and you identify as, somebody who gets production work done or manufacturing work done or has that different experience. So we're going to dive into that, because that was the whole idea behind this episode. And I'm extremely excited. Today, I'm sticking on the Flavier trip too. I'm drinking an Alamo Black Label bourbon. Now, you might notice I'm using this little card. Flavier, I'm using this little card. Did you catch that?
Flavier. You gotta say it a few more times.
Yeah, I gotta say it a few more times. And if you haven't noticed, what's really cool is it tells you the notes. So it's got a smoky note, a sweet note, a little caramel. And for me, I don't pick all of those up, but it's teaching me which ones I really, really like. So I like this Alamo bourbon, but I will be moving on today because I don't have a ton. So we're going to try a Texas single malt edition today as well. So only 2 small tasting because I have to go get pizza later. So we're going to be a little careful. And for those of you, who know a little bit about my background is I'm actually an accidental IT person as well. I was a lift mechanic, or in the lift mechanic apprenticeship program here for a summer in Vail Resorts, in Vail, Colorado. And I was changing tires on the top of a ski lift with a guy named Bemis. And Bemis made me get down from changing the tires and go and sit in front of a computer and wait. And he's sitting there just waiting and waiting and waiting. And I go, Bemis, what are you doing? And he goes, well, we got to see if the lightning strikes are coming. And I go, what? He goes, yeah, watch. There it is. There it is. I couldn't tell. We got to wait. And I'm like, okay, hang on a second. And I picked up the mouse and I'm like, is it this one you want? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, oh, it's on a rotation of things. Okay, we'll put this one here and this one here. And then this one here. And I'm like, those are 3 you need? He goes, like, yeah, that's 3 I need. And it rotated through continually. And he said, you're a genius. And literally that was the beginning of my IT career. And I went from $9 to $13 to become an IT person for 6 months driving trucks because of, a whole nother other story. But actually, Darren, what I think is interesting for the conversation is I do have a minor in psychology and spend a lot of time and love psychology, organizational psychology, and how that plays into how we interact. So with that being said, I'm going to step away and let Travis take it over and pose some of those questions for a great conversation.
Well, I think that what kind of was turning in the back of my mind for the audience members out there, when we kind of talk about the next episode, right? We found that the 2 guest seems to work pretty well. We've got 4 of us, 2 more guests, and it gets a nice round the table type conversation feel. But one of the reasons that I thought that it would be good to play Jeff as the guest is we did a Dorkathon back in December, way back in December of last year. And Darren took, was it about a 2.5 hour block of time in the afternoon. And he and Jeff had a really good
I talked that much?
Well, other people, you let other people talk during it as well. But it did revolve around this conversation. So I know it's a long time ago and a lot has definitely happened since then, but I think that if I remember right, the crux of that conversation was centered around tech adoption. And that's kind of what we're trying to get here is, again, those softer skills and how to drive tech adoption. I think that was a really good conversation there. And all of us were there, and hopefully maybe each of you can kind of relate what you kind of remember about that piece of that afternoon. Darren, we'll probably let you go first since you are the actual guest.
Gosh, how much do I remember? I actually just have recycled that list of bullet points that I just used kind of for my own notes. But I guess one of the things I keep hearing in the construction space is, where's this technology going? Where are things going? And well, I kind of have a pretty good idea because I've been in manufacturing and they've led in just about everything: parametric modeling, lean, product lifecycle management. That's the BIM of the manufacturing world. Supply chain, integrated supply chains. So a lot of this stuff seems kind of like it's obvious to me, but you run into a lot of people, they're just not tech savvy. They don't know what to do. Where's this going? Every vendor on the face of the earth will tell you, just wait a couple of months. Our next release is coming out, and then you'll want to compare us to our competitor. Well, the competitor's got another release, and you would literally wait forever. So what do? Maybe a lot of it might depend on the culture too. You might not have one of these companies where we can put this big ERP system in place and build upon it, and this big dedicated effort, but yet I want to move forward. How do I move forward not knowing where things are going or what's going to happen? And so that's where I kind of started developing that list. There's just some core simple things to look at that kind of tell you if something's a good solution or not. Does it integrate with something? Does it have an API to that I can integrate with something? Now, maybe I don't have programmers, maybe I have nothing to integrate it with, but if I implement that 10 years from now, maybe I will. It's a better solution than one that doesn't integrate. Does it eliminate paper? That's probably a better solution than the one that generates paper. Instead of paper, is it PDFs? Well, that's electronic paper. And it's better than paper in some cases, but it's still not really where we want to go. So is it database oriented? Like I said, there's just some kind of key things. Probably my next article I'm going to post on my site, it'll be covering a lot of those. What are the different aspects I look at technology? There's no right or wrong answer. Sometimes I'm the first guy that here, I'm going to pick this, and it goes against a lot of things I believe, but you can't hit everything. But there's some key things that just make sense to look at it. I don't know what the future holds for technology, but if I can eliminate paper and reference the data without generating copies or exports, those tend to be better solutions than those that don't follow those guiding principles.
Yeah. Before Jeff, you take over, there's always an axiom I hear over and over again that I want to kind of piggyback off of Darren, but you miss 100% of the shots you don't take, right? You have to take a shot. And I think that's kind of what you're getting at with some of that stuff.
Hockey reference, isn't that?
It's either hockey or basketball.
Let's go with hockey.
Brett Young would call it sports ball. But whatever.
The football bat.
That's right.
The football bat.
So
I had something to piggyback off the back of that too, in that, Darren, what you're doing with that gaming out of software, I think is something people don't do as they don't do that on purpose. They don't sit down all the time and say, okay, what are the points that I want to get out of this software? But on the other side of that, given what we're talking about, I've noticed just since I started being a consultant, talking to a lot of different companies, it doesn't necessarily matter if the solution is the highest ranking solution, if the people aren't at the threshold where they're ready to get that solution. Mm-hmm. Right. Like, unfortunately, I've met a lot of companies, and it's not really unfortunate, where you go through the company, you look at their general level of knowledge of technology, and you say, okay, you guys probably are going to be unsuccessful with data, but be really successful with PDFs. So do I encourage you to take that jump to do the best software based on gaming out what is the best software? Or do I look at who you are and say, I don't think you're going to be able to handle that? Pull back down. Jeff, I know that you deal with a lot of companies too. Do you ever look at the people and go, listen, there's better software out there, but you as a group, as a culture, you're really not ready for that?
It actually comes into play all the time. I was going to piggyback on Darren because what Darren's talking about there is finding a solution, but ultimately it's understanding the problem and the goal, right? And when you're looking at a software and you're going, okay, it needs to have an API, right? But I don't know that I'm going to ever do anything with that. That's a decision that doesn't preclude you from making another decision down the road. Like, I had this awesome experience of understanding how to layer things together. And especially as a consultant, like, you can't do everything as a consultant. Like, I can't, and these are the terms that Jonathan looks up, but I can't really over architect your Active Directory and get your organizational units and start putting automation inside of things in a company that's gonna end up making them pay me more money. I can, but I never felt that was a good thing to do. But what I would do is orchestrate the way I set them up so that if they ever got an IT person internally and they grew, I didn't preclude them from doing that down the road. That a decision that I made on a tool wouldn't down the road stop their business and make them restart over. And so, but for me, the stacking goes back to like when I was really first at being a consultant. So I came out of a really large corporation at Vail Resorts who taught you everything you wanted to know, but it wasn't their job to like give you their strategy and let you understand how the parts and pieces went together. Like they gave you a puzzle piece and said, just do your puzzle piece, like do what you're supposed to do. And that gave me a lot of that technical knowledge that I needed. But the first time I went out in consulting and I had my own company, like my own client, it wasn't the consulting company wasn't mine. I walked in and I was like, oh my God, I'm in over my head. And all I could think to do was, what do you want to do? Like, what's your goal as a business? Like, let's sit down and talk about that for a second. So I like took all these notes on their goals as a business, et cetera, and wrote it all down. And at the end, he's like, well, what's your solution? And I go, well, you gave me a complicated set of problems and I don't want to preclude you from anything from the future. I will be honest with all of you. I was bullshitting. I had no idea what I was going to do. I turned around and went running back to my buddy, Eric. And I said, Eric, all right, here's all the things they want to do. And he's like, oh, okay, cool. You know, what do they have? And we had a current inventory of what they had. And now we knew their goals. And so now we could go select a few things to say, okay, here's what we're going to look at. And this is when I learned how to select, firewalls and how to select these other things that didn't hurt them for later on. Like, oh, they might want to grow. So let's get this for them. This is back before the world of Azure and cloud, so we were building on-prem solutions. And so we discussed it and we came back with a couple of solutions. He's like, well, the other guy that was in here, that we were thinking about hiring was like, we need all of these things. And he's like, you don't think we can get that big? And I said, oh no, I think you can get that big, but all the things I just gave you will let you grow into that. And we can, upgrade this, add this with little to no problem because we're putting, this virtualization on it, et cetera. And he was like, I like you, man. That's it. And for me, that was it. That was the start with the person, start with the problem. Understand, Jonathan, to your point, some companies just aren't there. And all you're going to do is over-engineer them. And they've got a Ferrari and they just need to go to the grocery store and get a few groceries and drive home. Yeah, they look badass doing it, but it's not efficient. It doesn't work. I mean, Darren, how many of those solutions have you come across where you're like, what are you guys trying to build a rocket?
Yeah. I've over my career, I can think back of a number of cases, even in manufacturing, where great idea, let's not do that. It's the wrong approach, the wrong way. There was something. Yeah, this is a good idea, but we shouldn't do it, and here's why. There's no standards in software. Okay, maybe in your world, but there is in mine. It just, like I said, personally, I don't like PDFs. My coworker has a very strong opinion like that as well. They're electronic paper, but I'm okay with people using PDFs if it gets them off of paper. They start getting comfortable with the technology and working in a digital environment. The PDFs create some other headaches too, but you know what? I can manage those a little bit better with clever use of technology and solutions. The paper, I can't go in and implement file cabinets at everyone's desk and make that work nearly as easily as I can roll out technology. So, again, it's one of those things you got to understand where people are at and, find things that, okay, this will work. I mean, I've had people that, hey, bad idea, don't do this, don't involve me. And literally a year later, hey, we need to do this now. And they want it all at once. And nothing changed other than a year's worth of conversations and where they got comfortable with an idea or a concept and slowly started seeing, kind of what I saw earlier on. So sometimes it's just a matter of you kind of got to prime that pump. I guess start having that conversation now for something I might want to do 2 years from now, because not everyone's a thoroughbred or can run around that racetrack in the same speed. They can get around the track, but they come at different speeds. And so some of it's just recognizing that, hey, you know what? It doesn't matter if I'm the first one across the finish line every single time and I'm waiting for everybody else. Where I really help them is if I'm back in that pack, helping them where they're at. Because I can wish all they want for them to be somewhere else, and it just won't happen until they get there. So you've got to go the pace of the group.
Yeah, I was, I think Trent, you probably want to jump in here quick, but I had
sure.
a thought is, it's always something that I even struggle with in my own job, and it's probably something good for new construction technologists to learn. Is like sometimes the best solution is the one that you can get implemented, right? Like Darren was saying, you kind of get whatever you can get implemented starts to build that hunger, that thirst for something more. Even if you don't think it's the best thing. And like I said, I will struggle with that sometimes in my own. Like there's a better option out there, but I can get this implemented.
Yeah. I mean, I think my point to that was, we've got like Jeff and Jonathan here who are consultants, but like Travis, myself, Darren, we fill a similar role with our company, right? I mean, we're tasked with trying to implement software that makes us better as a builder, as a manufacturer. And sometimes you have to figure out what that means. And it's not always, it's not about what makes my job easier. It's not like, hey, this software is really easy for my detailers. It's really easy, or for me. But what we've done at North Mechanical is we bring the field in, we bring the project management team in, and we try to figure out what the pitfalls are, right? And I want to hear from those guys, like, what do you need? Like, because we're pushing fabrication. I mean, that's not going anywhere. So what do you have to have? And they'll lay it out, and then it's our job to bring a solution to the table that meets that needs and that'll accomplish it. So we talk about the human side of IT, but what do you think, like the human side of like the pre-IT? Because a lot of times we do a really good job of digging our own graves. Like we'll sit here and look at this Cadillac of the bunch, and we're like, I'm going to implement this, and my guys are going to use this, and this is where we're going. And then at the end of the day, all you get are phone calls. Hey, how do I work this piece of crap? Or how do I do that? This is way too complicated. What do you? So I like to think of that like pre-IT. Like, I mean, that's where, in my opinion, the human side of it is like, let me hear what you need in advance, and then I'm going to use, that predetermined goal as a way for me, because they're gonna trust my decision. I mean, whatever I go with is what we're gonna try, whether it wins or loses. So I would be really dumb not to listen to the people who are going to be using it, because all it's going to do to me is let my phone blow up, right? I mean, so I'm hoping maybe Darren, Jeff, you guys could elaborate a little. I just kind of want to set that lane.
Well, I'm going to jump on you there, Darren, and jump ahead, because there's something I've always wanted to teach people, and I try to teach every IT person that's worked for me or with me over time, is that there's this, and it's a unique position that we're all in, right? Darren's looked at this way, Jonathan, we're all looked at this way at our companies, even in the industry, is this thought leadership, these super smart people, right? Now, I think we all have a pretty good level of intelligence, et cetera, but I'm no smarter than a detailer, than an installer, than a foreman. I just have a level of expertise in what I do. They have a level of expertise in what they do. I've always made a joke out of it. Like, if you see me with a hard hat and a tool, run. And and if you've seen something I've built, condemn it. And that's because I'm not smart enough to do that. And people go, well, wait a minute. No, you're super smart. And he goes, no. See, that's the thing is I just have an area of expertise, and so do they. And so it's about sitting across and being like, hey, listen, you have a problem. I have a help to solve that from my level of expertise, but I need to learn about you. I need to learn about your problem. I need to learn about what you need to do in order so that I can connect you with something, because I don't have the level of expertise in whatever it is that you do. And it was funny. I had this moment with a person in accounting at Gallegos where I said that. She's like, oh, and I said, no. I can't even add those. I can't make that Excel sheet do that. I said, but is Excel really where you should be doing this? You know, how should we be doing this? Like, what's the goal and where are we going to get this thing to? And that changed the conversation because all of a sudden too, you gave them confidence. Like technology is scary, but I equate it to, and again, I'm probably going to get myself in trouble in construction. Is like, you put a heavy power tool in my hands, it scares the shit out of me. It really does. I mean, I was at World of Concrete and there was a rebar tying gun. And the guy was like, come on, man, do it. And I was like, okay, here we go. And I was just, you know, I just had that moment where the empathy inside of me was like, this is what it's like when I hand the iPad to someone who usually uses one of these tools. And I say, well, instead of writing it on paper, just do this. And it's that empathy that you've got to understand, because then all of a sudden all the barriers are gone. Like everybody feels cool at the table. Everybody understands that they're respected, understood for their own intelligence. And then solutions seem to come out of that for me. So Darren, that was kind of long winded, but that's my take on it. And something I've tried to instill in everybody. We're no smarter than anybody else. We're just really good at what necessarily we've decided is our area.
Darren,
you're muted.
You got a little muted there. We should play Zoom bingo with this.
There you go.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but like, there we go.
My audio keeps cutting out a little bit, so I might have to stop my video if I keep dropping off.
I have to, when I edit this together, I have to find that those screens they used to put up in the old days of the technical difficulties and stuff.
Yeah, no doubt.
Like the rainbow screen.
That happened in a show recently I was watching. Go for it, Darren, though. You're back with us. You can go voice if you need to.
Well, the subject on IT needs to have IT issues.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
I used to talk about when I would do presentations and stuff. I was the IT guy that had 14 connectors and a projector bulb in my bag because I knew everything that could possibly go wrong.
Right.
I will let you know that's when I knew you and I were going to be friends. You made that statement and I was like, I'm going to dig that, dude. Because you know what, Travis? I had that with bubble wrap around it in the same case.
Did any of you guys have the jump drive of fortune? Like the jump drive that had everything you needed to recover when they deleted stuff, when they screwed stuff up. It had like a quick malware check. You know, I think they had the portable PC, and I was using the portable PC to check everybody's computers.
I feel bad for poor Darren, but I want to get this in before he gets his thoughts. But
go for it.
When I was working for a startup company a long time ago, before my present job, I carried a jump drive that had our entire system on it, just in case something happened.
Yep. I had that on tape.
Go ahead, Darren. Oh, we lost your mic again.
Lost your mic again.
It is perfect that we have audio problems. Darren's just muted now.
There we go. All right. Now, can you hear me now?
Yes.
All right. I'll keep my video off, see if that helps maybe. I think I've got you one beat, because when I first got on the internet and I found out you could download programs and files, this is in the old dial-up BBS modem days. I printed off a list of every file I could download, so I know I could find it again if I needed it. It was just like a couple reams of paper. It's like, no, it'll be there forever. I didn't realize that concept. No, in terms of just, I think some of it, like Jeff, you're talking about humility. It just, I run into people quite a bit that, oh, thank you, especially if you're dealing with a guy who's working at night, doesn't have any support, or he's on the weekend, and thank you so much. You're the only one that helps me out. And it's like, dude, from a lean perspective, I don't change a product, I don't build a product, I don't hang a product. I am completely overhead. My only value is to make sure you're efficient. And you know what? The work you guys do, the guys in the field, the guys in the shop, the tradesmen and women, they're the ones who give my wife and kids and I a good quality of life. And it's the thanks needs to go the other way. And so a lot of it's just understanding, hey, they're the ones that are making the money. And if I don't do my job right, they're going to be the ones losing the money. And so I just always try to look at it from that perspective. But, and just even understanding, over the years, I've had some people who are classified as tough users. Oh, this guy, he's just always a complainer. I found they're usually not a complainer. They're passionate about something. They care about something. They feel like they're not being heard. So I had one guy, it was an IPD job in San Francisco, and just everybody, the specialty metals guy to the MEP contractor to the architect, everyone was on they spanned like 10 different versions of AutoCAD. And so the GC was going to try to get everyone upgraded, and he was just against it. No, bad idea. That's their problem to deal with that. And I just camped out at the project site for a week. Let me know what your problem is, Bill. I'll get you an answer. I'll let you know the status. I'll get you a workaround. And by the end of the week, he's like, this is the easiest upgrade I've ever had. And, it dawned on me that, his view of an upgrade is somebody shows up, gives them a new computer, new software, and then they leave. And I spend a couple of days trying to figure out how to do my job again. And he just never had anyone there to help him through that thing. Things don't work the same, because we all know we don't train like we should in this industry. And so just being there for them.
Doesn't pay to train, right?
I
can't bill it.
Yeah, I had a shop manager once. He called me and it's like, so this is IT on top of this? Do I need to do anything? Do I need to get a hold of this vendor? Because when you start talking a plasma table, well, that thing cuts with lightning bolts. It's not a USB port, so IT gets kind of freaked out on that. And I said, the fact that you have to ask me that question tells me there's a problem. You shouldn't have to wonder what the status is. And again, problem user from the perspective of the traditional IT folks, but he was actually
lost you again, Darren.
Lost you. Drop your virtual background, Darren.
I don't know if you can hear.
He can't even hear you.
Yep, there he goes.
Very fitting for an IT episode. Right?
Super fitting for an
plan
IT
this better.
episode.
We plan this. We plan this stuff all the time.
There we go. That better?
Much.
That is.
All right. Tell me you didn't lose the last 10 minutes.
No, just the last
minute.
sentences.
Yeah, so start with, hey, Darren, what are your thoughts?
No, it's, it's just be there.
Lost you again.
Oh.
Might be the headset, my friend.
It might be the headset. I don't know.
The darn wireless.
Well, he's out. Can I tell you a Darren story? Because I actually have a Darren story.
You have a Darren story?
I have like many Darren stories. You'd be surprised. So like I would say of the people that I've gone to their class, Darren has saved me probably the most money. Okay. So like Darren did for AU, Darren, I'm just talking about you for a second. Darren did for AU 60 hints in 60 minutes or something. Okay. And there was standing room only to get in there, by the way. And he goes in and he's like, hey, this is what AutoCAD doesn't want to tell you about how to make their software work really easily for all your people. And he did all the reg edits. He did all the file edits that make it so that all this crap that your people have to go through to use, you can do that for them and kind of hand it to them on a platter. And I remember the first time I went into his class, I was like, oh, that's awesome. And I took home his flyer and I got that all worked out in the company. The second time, like I saw his name and I'm like, I'm hitting all of his classes because he makes my life easier and makes me money. And then, so like, I got to say, one of the things I took away from that, and one of the reasons I thought he'd be awesome as the human side of IT is when I got done with his class, I was better at presenting technology to my company. He gave me some secrets and some hints.
What not to do?
Not just what not to do, dude, but like how to get beyond what the software is asking you to do.
Sometimes that's more valuable.
Stuff.
Yeah.
Reg
Talk
edits.
about that. Now that you got your voice back, talk to us about that one, Darren. Like, that is the human side. How do you get past the tool and the technology and get to moving your business forward?
Well, this started when I relocated to Southern California for a job, and I was there, I think, 2 weeks, and I realized I couldn't do what they hired me to do. That's kind of a scary thought. So I just looked for opportunities, and how many of your users focus on technology? On the trade side, it's our detailers. Whether it's a plumber, pipe fitter, sheet metal worker. I don't want them thinking about software. I want them to think about how am I going to get this duct from here to there. And if they have to think about technology, I've failed. I can't completely eliminate it, but I minimize it. And the other thing is just construction workers, they're like the Native Americans chasing the buffalo on the Great Plains. The buffalo herd comes through, teepees are packed up, and we're on the move going to hunt buffalo. That's the construction life. So submit a help desk ticket and wait, and then you get a email. Let me. When can I hop on your system? Well, right now. But then you get to respond to that. So as much as I can, I try to make things, self-help. Go here, click this. You could do this yourself, or I'll gladly do it for you. Let me know. And by more times than not, they're happy to do it themselves if I provide the guide rails and the for that. Put the bumpers up on the side. Let them do that, and just click here. It'll do everything you need.
I'm going to jump in too if we're kind of doing Darren stories and whatnot.
Oh boy,
to keep this going.
Keep in mind, my family may listen to this at some point. So
so this next part's going to be explicit, Darren. So fair warning, but it's definitely something I would like you and Jeff to expound upon. Is Darren and I had an opportunity. It's end of last year again, I think, to head out to California to go in and a startup incubator type discussion. And one of the things I said early on is I want Darren there because he's going to shit on anything that's bad. And I say that
I don't know that you put the bad part in there. He shits on everything.
He shits on everything. That's what I said. But I say that with a great deal of respect and if we can say this on a podcast these days, respect and love, because what I love about you is you go to bat for your people, right? That's what I mean by that. And I think that Jeff, I've seen that as well for you is it kind of gets back to the best solution is the one that you can implement. So can you expand upon that, about where it's not just the human side to make sure that your people get adopted, but on pushing back on the industry, pushing back on management, shitting on those things that don't make sense?
Well, you've got the history there, Darren. You got to take that one. I know.
Yeah, I think because I've been that guy. Oh, this is going to work great. I can't figure out how to do my job. I just, and I've been on the software side. I worked for a reseller. I actually went through some reseller training once when I had my own business years ago, and just to listen to them talk about how you can manipulate people. And do you have documentation, Jeff, for your software product? Yes or no? Yes, you do. Well, must be pretty damn complicated that you have to document it. Oh, yeah. No, you don't. Well, that's bad. Well, maybe you don't because it's simple. I mean, you could spin anything, so it just, let's call a spade a spade. Let's get it all out in the open and just be honest with everything. I guess like I said, you do have to, I've learned over the years to meter that a little bit and put a little softer edge on it. But, don't come up and lick my ice cream cone and then tell me how much I should enjoy it. That's
thought of the day.
That is the thought of the day, man. Don't lick my ice cream cone. Like it. No, I have to agree with you. And I know you guys have heard me talk a lot about this lately, is cognitive dissonance. And I'm not going to espouse on what's going on right now in our world. However, I think a healthy dose of cognitive dissonance where we can agree to disagree and discuss is key, because if we all think the same, if all 5 of us on this podcast think the same, then why the hell do I need the 4 of you? I'll just talk for an hour and a half and then call it quits, and I don't have to worry about anything else but me. And that's actually not how it works. I mean, Jonathan, you and I started a battle at MCAA and took it to the stage. I mean, because we fundamentally disagreed with certain things, and I had an understanding and you had an understanding, and you had a point and I had a point, and ultimately we came to what I think surprised both of us was like a middle ground that, oh shit, he's right and I'm right. And that's what you need. You need to be able to look at, it can't all be sunshine and roses. Like Darren said, like you gotta call it out when it's not going to do what it needs to do. When you see the gaps in it that are going to hurt, somebody's got to step up, because, for me, Travis, you asked the question, how did I get there? I got there because I wasted money not doing that. I didn't ask the questions. I didn't go there. And then I ended up implementing a giant turd that never went anywhere.
Yeah.
And that's it. That's the only way I learned, is that I had to speak up, because everybody's got hindsight, right? That's 2020. It's real easy to point fingers afterwards, but if you're sitting at that table and you don't bring it up, you know the consequences if you don't. So I had failed, and so now whenever I hear it, I'm like, I've got to bring it up. And sometimes it's really, especially in development, Travis, I think you can get this, because it's usually something somebody's designed, right? It's their baby, and you're telling them their baby is ugly. And you need to be able to do that in such a way that it's like, listen, it's not you, but this isn't the right solution. This is you're just not hitting the nail on the head.
You can get that sometimes by, it took me a long time to learn this, but instead of telling them the baby's ugly, ask them questions about their product. So how would you do this? Now, I already know the answer. But I don't want to tell them, hey, your product is bad because it doesn't do this or do that. But just, how would I do this? I've got the need, so just framing some of that stuff up differently, I think can help. But I guess one of the things I really like about my role is I see people in different positions, field guys, shop guys, detailers, engineers, or, one shop versus another shop. And, we build it this way here, they build it. And I hear different perspectives. And and it's interesting to see that from people, these different perspectives. And, what I learned is I'll talk to a guy and he'll tell me, oh yeah, that he's on to it. I'm going to go tell this to the other guy. And he's, I'm going to explain it. And then that guy's going to explain to me why that's bullshit. And then it's like, and then he'll explain why his way is right. And it's like, oh yeah, he's right. I'll go tell the other, and I keep going back and forth. And it's like, in the end, they're kind of both right. And I found over the years, sometimes I can help be that translator, because at the end of the day, I'm not that smart. I'm not an engineer, I'm not a tradesman. I don't build anything, but I do understand enough of each of those that I can help sometimes bridge that gap. Between those people, be that translator, so to speak. And I think that's one reason I ask a lot of those questions, is just, okay, well, it works for him. What about this other guy over here? Have we thought about this? Like I said, just because something can't work a certain way or solve a particular task doesn't mean it's bad. It's only bad if you don't know it's there and you're counting on it. So I'm okay with software that doesn't necessarily work exactly what you want. I just want to know what those limitations are, so I don't count on them. And my implementation now, that's a key part of getting it done, is that thing that doesn't work. If I know it doesn't work, I can work around it and pivot.
That's that 80-20, right?
Yeah.
But I got to say it, because we need to get cash on our hashtags, is that's the human API, Darren. That's what I wrote an article a while back and just called this the human API. We are the ones in IT that translate what's being said, and what's being said by tradespeople, what's being said by management, accounting, and what's being said by software, and we translate it into each other's languages, so we can figure out what's going to work and what's not going to work. That's that ability to understand the problem and then articulate the solution. But then what you're calling out is something people really fail to get when they're looking at technology and implementing it. Is it's never going to be 100%. There just isn't a solution out there that does that. There's nothing that's everything for everybody.
Even at the API level, there's like a protocol aspect of it. Is it using serial, or is it using Ethernet? Those are all techie terms, but I can think of an example. A company I worked at, they wanted to implement design presentation standards, and so you get a bunch of engineers in a room and you look at a symbol. And is it the right shape? Is it the right pen weight? Is it got the right size and orientation, the right look? And they literally would go through these things one at a time, week after week after week. And they got to their deliverable. And now we got to implement sheet metal, naming standards across how we build fittings across the entire organization. And so, Darren, you should use this process. And that worked really good. Let's do that. By meeting 2, they were ready to mutiny. And when you think about it, what does a construction guy do? What do you need? What do you need, Travis? Tell me. All right, now get out of my way. Let me do it. Get the hell out of my way and let me do it. And by meeting 2, I said, okay, I've heard enough. And because it was weird, they would, they'd give you feedback, but then they would say things contrary to their own feedback because they'd hear feedback from others. And just knowing that user base well enough, I said, I'll schedule another meeting 2 weeks from now. I'll have 3 examples of a naming scheme for you to pick from. And, I knew exactly what they would pick when I was done with that. But it was just understanding, their process is different than an engineer. An engineer refines and hones and revisits and keeps dialing things in. They keep peeling that onion. A construction guy will, most of them will go nuts if you put them in that environment. Likewise, there's a similar dynamic too with just, they don't submit help desk tickets. If you stopped every time you ran into a problem as a construction worker, somebody would get your check and you'd be down the road.
Right.
That's your problem. That's your job, to solve problems. You only let people know when you can't work.
Exactly.
So I guess one of the examples is, we got some shop upgrades. We got this nice, big, expensive automated machine in, and I only trust Gary's drawings. Well, Gary's retired. What are we going to do now? And I saw this holds true in manufacturing, every industry I've been in. They won't let you know what the problems are because they're busy. They have to keep working. And so I went out there and I proactively had to get out there. I had to get out of my chair. It wasn't an email, it wasn't a phone call, it wasn't a text message. Go where the work is being done. Let's see, let's show him. And in a very short time, they trust our detailing department. They know that, hey, the things that made me question the data, those things are actually the most likely to be wrong. The bill of materials might not be updated, might have rounded the wrong way. The dimension grabbed the right point off the piece of the wrong point off the piece of the pipe, but it's too small for me to notice. The model is what's right. And so now I've got them committed to a digital workflow because they know that all of those analog tactical things, but I couldn't have found that out just by sitting, behind my desk. I had to go and, show me let me understand what you see. Let me dig in, figure it out, and let me update you what I found. Like I said, it's really not that hard when you get out of it, but you can't do it with text messages. And I think that's one of the key things. I worked at a company once that their president had a theology degree, and he had this concept. He's like, you drive by on the highway and you see a stranger broke down. Do you pull over and help them out? Now you're driving down the road and you see your best friend broke down. Do you help them out? Sooner or later, problems are going to rise at work. There's going to be problems. You can't fix them. You're going to need help. You might have even caused the problems, and you're just going to destroy somebody's day asking for help to dig you out of the hole you just created. You want them to be your friend or not? You got to get that personal connection. Get to know people.
Yep.
I don't know if you have experienced this, Darren, but when I first started going out in the field with some of the solutions that we had rolled out and started watching how people were actually using them, like more than 75% of the time they were using it in some weird sort of artful use way that was super intelligent. Like, this is a really bright way to get around all the limitations of this software. Like I would come back into the office and basically replicate whatever this field guy was doing because he actually used it better than I was trying to explain how they should use it, because I wasn't installing things every day. So it was sort of more foreign to me to sit there and say, okay, well, what measurements did I need? I think the worst thing was the one guy was telling me, like, we were talking and he's like, I only have a 15-foot tape. And I said, what do you mean? He says, it's 25, but I only ever measure 15 feet. So just know that. And I said, why did you ask me that? He says, so if you ever put a freaking dimension on a drawing that's more than 15 feet, I can't measure it. He's like, and I was like, are you kidding me? Like, so I have to, and he's like, yeah, absolutely. I have a 15-foot tape. He says, it's really 25, but you don't take it out that far. And these were like little things that I didn't think about. And then all of a sudden you meet them and it's like, okay, so every time you give me a drawing where there's 25 feet measurements, I put a chalk line down. And I didn't know that they're spending time putting a chalk line down in order to get the dimensions on a drawing to get even work. I mean, getting out there is always, it's always hilariously humbling to watch how bright they are at getting around all the problems you've made for them.
Absolutely.
And I'll piggyback quick before you jump in, Trent, that, they're not going to ask you for that. No, they are not going to ask you at all. I thought I was chuckling about the IT ticket because it's totally true. A lot of times we try to do these tech implementations. We wonder why they don't go well because nobody complained about them. Trent and I have the same background with the military. It's like they're if they're complaining, something's right. If they're not complaining, something's wrong, right?
Right.
So you need to get out there.
No news is good news, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
And if you browbeat them enough to submit a ticket, the response comes back, well, can you reproduce it? If you can't reproduce it, we can't help you. It's like, oh,
Ugh.
we just went backwards.
Yeah.
Well, and I agree with you guys on this one. Like, you don't hear about the problems that you've created. So way back when I was on the first ever, my show on the Contact Crew, it was a Contact Trio. I was a guest, and they said, how do you get out there and figure things out? And I said, well, I do this walk around. Like, you have to get, like Darren said, you got to get out behind your desk. And I was walking around. I realized that, like, I wasn't getting any feedback from the field. I was getting good feedback from my shop that was doing a lot of fabrication, and, it was a lot of marble and granite and, CNC machines, and spent a lot of time understanding, what their skills were and what mine were and how we made these big things, make these incredible cuts. But I knew I wasn't connecting with the field. And also, I'm going to be honest, there was a barrier. Most of our masons are of Spanish descent and speak Spanish. So it's like, what can I do? And I'm like, I played softball. Anybody can play softball, right? I can suck at it and I can still play. So I joined the company's softball team. And after this, first game, everybody's kind of looking and, all right. And I hit the ball and ran and, played, and they were, okay, he's cool. And I came back to game 2 and I'm sitting around talking to them, and they're like, hey, my iPhone's broken. I'm like, oh, well, what's up? Let me see it. And he, hands it over, and it was this guy, Hector, who, again, in the end had a great relationship with. And I was like, what's wrong with it? And I'm like, oh man, this is what's broken. No big deal. Let me fix it real quick, fix it, hand it back to him. He's like, oh man, that was killing me. Let me, he's like, hey, Nacho, come over here. He can fix that problem. And I'm like, well, show me what you were actually doing to get around it. And he showed me like all the clicks he was doing to get around it. I'm like, this is, oh my gosh, let me fix this. Well, then all of a sudden softball became the help desk, right? Every Thursday night, they'd keep their problems until we got there. We'd play the game. I'd show up early. They'd hand me phones. I'd help them out. If I couldn't help them out, then we'd play the game, and I'd take their phones back to the office, and then I'd meet them wherever they were to drop them off on Friday afternoon. And this was the way that I got in. And it didn't matter if I had sent out 1 billion emails and beat them over the head. These guys were never going to open a ticket, but they were having struggles. So I found other ways to connect with them. Right. The other part was they could laugh at me. Nacho was like one of the fastest, best softball players we had. And he was like, well, at least you're quick, man, because you suck. And but it was like, oh, cool. We're human. We're friends. We've got something else to talk about.
Sure.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Trent.
No, I think my point to it was obviously when I took the position with North as the head of technology, I came from the field, and a lot of the people that work in the field knew me, and that probably gave me an advantage. But from day one, it was instilled in the VDC, BIM, everything. It's a field first mentality. I mean, it's so my job is to figure out, how do I delegate what's going on to the point where if the field calls with an issue, that's the precedent. I mean, you have to have that that open ability. I mean, you can't just leave them guessing, like Darren said over and over. I mean, you don't want those guys trying to figure out IT or technology issues. I mean, you need somebody ready to solve their problems, because construction keeps moving.
Well, and Darren, I don't know how you dealt with this in manufacturing, and I'm sure you probably have a more eloquent story around it. But for me, I worked with this guy, Dave Reynolds, who was the chief financial officer at A Basin. And we had an incident where I was helping ticket sales for something, and there was a problem with scanning. And he kept trying to get on me to go deal with scanning. And I was like, well, but I'm in tickets. And end of the day, he let that day go. And at the end of the day, he pulled me in his office. He said, listen, we got to have a talk. There's a hierarchy here. Like, we realize revenue when we scan a ticket, right? That's where we make our money. So the most critical part of the organization is where I realize my revenue. And I said, oh, because I thought it was where you sold your ticket, right? Where you
Yeah.
captured your cash, but it wasn't. From a financial perspective, it was realizing that revenue so that it didn't get left hanging out. And so all of a sudden I understood his priorities, and he was like, yeah, I kind of figured you didn't understand that back end of it. And, you know, in construction, that was something I brought in for me, understanding that we can do anything we want in pre-construction. We can do anything we want in BIM. We can do anything we want in VDC. We can do anything we want in our factories and in our manufacturing and offsite construction, whatever you want to call it. We don't get paid until we install it.
Labor hours are all that matter.
The labor hours,
And
but
it's the-
installation, right? It's that final product. It doesn't matter if I
I'm
only
telling you, labor hours is all a manager is going to care about.
right. And so
End of the day.
and if you're blocking that, you've got to know your priorities. And I think the manufacturing background, Darren, has to have brought out some of that in you. You have to kind of understand that. And you probably have a pretty cool example for us.
Yeah, so I'll try to leave some names out of it for.
Mine was
but
good. So
Do your best.
I got in trouble. I got in trouble one time. So here's a shop manager when I first met him. This is my introduction. You F and IT guys are all the same. More shit's broke when you leave than when you show up. Leave my shit alone. You know, and within 2 weeks I could do anything because he he actually knows what a plasma table does. He's going to make sure that works before he leaves. Anyway, so I've got a pretty good relationship with him, and because that manufacturing center was separate from where the office people worked, it was in a crappy little industrial area, never got any attention. And they had a server go down that we had some key technology that ran everything. And so I got everything staged, ready to go. And, the IT infrastructure guys are busy rebuilding a new, virtual server to deploy. And, hey, let me know when it's ready. And I get a call in the afternoon. What in the hell is going on? I got 40 guys standing around, pushing brooms, tidying up, looking for stuff to do. What is the deal? And hey, dude, Scott, let me get it back to hold of you. I said I'd leave names out of it. Scott knows who he is. Let me get back to you. Got a hold of IT. Oh, sorry. I guess we forgot to email you. And so I'm usually not good. I'm usually not a fan of calling people out on the carpet in front of others. There's appropriate times for that. So I emailed the entire IT group and I copied the shop manager. I said, just so you know, this email that you forgot to send was a $40,000 labor mistake. These are all union guys in a big city walking around. And, so the new IT director at the time was, they thought you were, calling them out and making them look bad in front of the customer. And it's like, I said, I hear what you're saying, but I didn't tell him anything he didn't already know. And I wanted him to know that we understood is why I did it that way that time. And again, the IT director at the time, he had no clue that facility facilitated the entire revenue for that whole division. That, it's that big a deal. Yeah, I know they're a little in the southern states a little bit. They talk funny, but they generate the revenue for everything that division does. And so you got to keep them busy. And it's, oh, by the way, did you know that, these guys are union guys. If they show up, you could send them home in 5 minutes. You're paying them more than that 5 minutes. There's a minimum amount of time. And if they're there for X number of hours, you pay them for the whole day, whether they're used or not. That email is a $40,000 email.
So the rubber meets the road.
Nobody realized that before. Really, management realized that, but nobody on the technology side does. And you have to understand the business. I had somebody in IT once is like, well, I don't know what all those files are those CAD guys have out there. It's like, how can you not? They pay your paycheck. You should understand that. If I'm not an IT guy and I got to run Wireshark with a 4-hour phone call with an expert from Autodesk that's based out of Belgium, how come you can't figure out how to open a DWG file? It's just, it's got to go both ways. The more you understand about people and the business, the better you can navigate the tech. It's not a tech solution. It's not a tech problem.
For sure.
Yeah.
The human side.
You're 100% correct. Yeah.
If you text somebody who's literally 2 cubicles in an open office, from you instead, or email them instead of walking over and talking to them or leaning back and, hey, Joe, you've got a problem. You're on the wrong track. If you, this is, I guess, kind of, if I probably don't do this as well as I should, but I try to. Are they in the same building? I'm going to go walk and see them. If they're not, I'm going to call, leave a voicemail, email, text. There's kind of a priority in there. But if I can walk to them, even if I could pick up the phone or email them or just give them a status update, I will walk and talk to them. Again, that's how you find out that hey, you know what? I'm a Seahawks fan, or I like drag racing, and you start having a conversation, and now you build that personal connection. And now when you screw up royally, they're going to have a hard time getting pissed off at you because you're their friend. They know you.
That's the office lane.
Yeah.
Right.
Lane.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's the tough part of the current environment with the pandemic, right? Is some of that stuff's taken away from us, but we gotta work our way around that.
I come in the office every day all through the pandemic. It's the one place you can find toilet paper. No competition for toilet paper at the office.
And there's Darren right
there.
Can I ask you guys, and this is really for everybody, a weird question, because it says this is supposed to be the after hours thing anyway. So what's been on my mind since you guys put up the human side of IT is something that my wife said. And Jeff, you said you had a minor in psychology. My wife is definitely my psychologist, and she's definitely good at her job. Okay. So I was complaining about about somebody. I was just complaining about somebody who didn't do tech well. And she looked at me and she said, listen, she said, why don't you start spelling words for me? And I said, you're a pain in the ass because I'm dyslexic. So I don't spell well at all. And she said, listen, we're moving into a digital age and there are people who are not going to be able to do it. They're not going to be. And special accommodation is made for you, man. The world's made for people that can't read and write right now. I can do voice and all this stuff. She said, don't you think that there is coming a day when we're going to have to make special accommodation for people that really just are not going to get it? Because I'm telling you right now, I could take 1 million spelling classes and I will not spell better. It's not gonna happen.
I think you mean more.
There is
spell
more better
than I already spell, which is really bad because I had like contactors and contractors messed up on a set of drawings and it was horrible because we were hooking up contractors to a panel, which was not okay. But
sometimes,
do you think that, because you guys have met a lot of people, right? Do you think that you have met people who you look at and it's like, you're never going to get this. You're never going to get this. How am I going to deal with you? Because ever since she said that, I've thought through this short list of people and I've said, I've been treating them like they're idiots, but I don't think they're idiots. I think there's something else psychologically that's stopping them from being able to do this. And since then, I've been looking for accommodations. Have you run into those people, or am I meeting like a sort of weird subgroup?
I think this is a great thing for our
You want to do that, Jeff? Or I could do it as well, or
go ahead, Darren. Go ahead. Seriously.
Who wants it?
I have some experience with this as well, but I'm interested in yours.
Yeah, so it's funny. Jeff mentioned something about granite and stone. I worked in the granite industry for a while, and you got these big lumberjack guys out there making these intricate little flower carvings on stone out in the shop. And when you talk to the office people who are doing artistic work, they weren't necessarily technical. And when I was really young, I would get frustrated with them. And somebody pointed out to me, it's like, can you do what they do? No. How much money are we going to make if they can't do that work? And nobody does it. And so it's just the forest is made up of a lot of different shades of green, and they're all make the forest. And same thing. The fence posts don't have to all be the same height, but they all help hold the fence up. And I think just learning some of those things early on is just, hey, they have different skills than I do. I can't do what they do. They might not be able to do what I do. On the technology side, I think some of it, it might be a performance and anxiety type thing. I know, like I have a son who, they're homeschooled, so they do a lot of stuff on the computer. But math, you would think math isn't his thing. You give him you give him the problem on paper, and he can't do it. You put it on a computer, the same exact problem, and no problem. It's like the computer, he thinks it can help. And I think you kind of got the corollary of that a lot of times, that it's that paper, I can touch it, I can feel it, I can taste it, I can smell it. It's in the computer. That's magic. That's voodoo and witchcraft. And so they just don't understand. So you got to look for those small little wins. I look a good friend of mine in Las Vegas, he was he started out as a cook in the commercial kitchens and the casinos. He ended up in the trades, and he threw away the company's, week-long Revit training program. And he's like, I don't have a week. I find out Friday the guy's starting Monday. And I said, so he says he treated training the same way as an apprenticeship. And when he teaches down at the hall, I'm going to show these guys how to drop in duct diffusers. They don't know anything else. They can't print. They can't open the file. They can't do anything. And they're going to drop in duct diffusers all day until they hate it. But they're going to have one skill that I can use and put them to work and add value in the company. And when they get that skill mastered, I'm going to move them to the next skill. He said it was the same thing when I worked in the kitchens in the casinos. You peeled potatoes until you hated it. And when you finally mastered that, you learn to wash dishes. You don't start out, being, Gordon Ramsay right off the get-go. You've got to build these skills. And I think so some of those people, it's finding what is the minimum viable thing that I can teach them that gives them value, builds their confidence.
I have to chuckle for Trent and I again, because military background, they teach everything at an 8th grade level, right?
By the numbers.
By the numbers, what is the most basic thing? And you only progress forward at your own ability. So it makes me chuckle to think about that, because it is entirely true. Like you have to find that most common denominator and then move forward. So sorry, Jeff, I know you had a thought there.
No, I actually like that, because, and I agree with Darren and Jonathan, you're right, actually, that there are people I have come across who at one point I felt they're never going to get technology. It's just not going to happen. Like that, dyslexia is an ability. It's the way the mind sees the world differently. But in many cases it provides, a lot of dyslexics turn out to have a love of reading because it was harder for them. Right. So there's an upside to it if you can find a way to find that minimal viable thing that they can do. And what I found is people don't get outside of their comfort zone. So they always think inside of the box of business. So what I would challenge you with here is when you're working with them, stop thinking about the products or the things you're trying to get them to do at work. Let's think about something that we care about. Like my favorite thing is everybody would tell me when I was selling software to the trades, like, oh, foremen can't use a mobile phone. I go, ask them about their kids or their grandkids.
Sure.
Boom, I get a picture. Yep. Ask them to send it to you. They actually stumble usually. So, okay, let's walk through that, because that's an important thing where they can share that like with somebody else. And then you watch how they build and learn. You realize that their brain is wired differently than yours is. So you have to, and this is a tough skill for people in the industry, but you have to get outside of the way your brain works and follow how their brain works, and then architect what you're providing to them to fit that narrative, to fit the way that they do that. And it changes the way they adopt the technology, because I've got everybody and classes like Darren talked about are built for the 80%, right? They're built for everybody that's going to start at grade level 8, learn and go to 9th, and learn and go to 10th and 11th. And these people's brains don't work that way. So we're going to have to go from 8th to 11th back to 10th, because these are the things that they're going to grasp inside of the process. And sometimes we've got to go outside the bounds, and people are never comfortable going out, especially IT people. They never think about the personal side of things. They never think about picking up a phone or a tablet and making it about, hey, like I taught somebody how to use Facebook. Right. And the person looked at me and was like, you spent a half an hour teaching somebody for Facebook, and that cost me $50. And I said, watch. Now we want them to use this MLS software.
Right. Yeah. Gain it back on the,
Right.
There's a return on the back end. Sure.
They were like, this is in real estate. MLS is a real estate. And all of a sudden they were much more comfortable. They're like, wait, I get the clicks. I get the thing, right? The social media things that are built for us are built to also activate things inside of our brains. The social dilemma, if you haven't seen it, it's fantastic.
So the most profitable jobs that I have seen at my company, I have blown the BIM budget out of the water, right? So you're getting that money back somewhere, right? I mean, you're trying to trade hours from the field to hours in the office. And it's not a 1-for-1 transfer. We're trying to eliminate 2-for-1, 3-for-1, whatever
rework versus physical rework.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
well,
That bits than
one guy versus 10 or whatever that might be. Yeah.
No, I've
Go ahead,
noticed too. Sometimes it's just a matter of. I'm gonna go way back. I cheated through 8th grade math. Most of the class did. The instructor was just bad. There's one guy, and I was in band. I played percussion, so he didn't always play. And that was before math. My job,
drummer.
Yeah, my job was to copy that dude's math, homework every day for everyone in the class. That's what I did. That was the agreement we all had. Because my older brother went through him, my parents knew that, he was just a bad teacher. He couldn't explain it in a way people got. And so she knew the next year's teacher. I spent 1 hour with her one day, and I got through the rest of the class on my own because she explained it differently. And a lot of times I think these people that you think don't get it, you just need to explain it in a way they understand. So one of the products we implemented, we're still implementing, is Stratus. And say, oh my gosh, that's an awful lot for software. It's not software, it's a system. It's not a tool, it's a production line, technically speaking. But I said, by the way, it's half the cost as that tool that we just renewed that does nothing but shares PDFs. So, let's put it in context. But I said, we didn't get these big mechanical jobs by sending somebody a box of fittings and valves and a couple sticks of pipe. Yeah. Here you go, Amazon. Here you go, Microsoft. Here's a box of valves, fittings, and a pipe. Imagine your facility. We didn't do that. We sold them on an environment. We sold them on systems. And so when I'm constantly trying to get better at explaining things in a language that others understand. And like I said, thinking back to that math, if it's explained the right way, that thing that I just couldn't get over, that my brother couldn't get over, that most of that class couldn't get over, one person in 1 hour lifted that veil over, from my eyes, and it was clear from there. So it's
a phenomenal analogy.
Yeah.
Really is.
That is fantastic. That's fantastic. We're already 15 minutes over what we would typically call an episode. So I have two. You can see here. I have two thoughts. The first one is definitely always connect with the people in the field, and whenever you feel like they aren't tech savvy, they aren't tech ready, like, all you have to do is find that one point where you can connect with them. That's where I found my largest successes is we talk about a lot when we talk about in the circuit. We bought that grumpy old foreman that doesn't want to do technologies. Like, if you can either like Jeff was talking about, like the MLS thing, the Facebook thing, the grandkids thing, find that spot where they can connect, or B, Darren, you pointed out this a lot, is where do I get my additional value, right? So if you can show with them either one of those two things, you're going to get good technology adoption. My second thought, which is completely off topic and has nothing to do with anything, Jeff, I think you've spent too much time on the ski slopes. Your front face light definitely shows a goggles mark. So I'm not a skier, so I'm not quite as jealous, but definitely the outside time does make me feel a little sad. So, well, I don't know how that really relates to further conversation to wrap things up, but that's where I'm at.
Well, you handed me two things that I can wrap it up with from my perspective, at least. The first is never forget that the people that you're connecting with are the most important thing. And they are what, IT rarely ever, unless you're a outsourced managed service provider, is the cash flow generator. So it's your job to get your own paycheck by helping them be successful and by connecting with them. And that's what makes you all stronger. And the other is life's about balance. You got to get outside. I wish it was a goggle tan because we're not quite there. This is from sunglasses, from riding the bike, because during election, I needed reflection. So I went out and I rode my bike a ton so that I wouldn't
didn't know it.
Yep, poet didn't know it. Talk about it, etc. So for me, This is really cool being on the other side of the microphone tonight, guys. So I appreciate it. And Darren, I was psyched that I actually was selected to join you because, that time we met in Dallas, the 2.5 hours was a fantastic conversation, and they always are when we have you. So, final thoughts for you on those two.
No, I appreciate the conversation. It's nice to know that I'm not completely dysfunctional.
It's nice to know you're not alone, right? I mean, that's the big thing for a
Yeah.
lot of us.
No, and like I said, I think it's really, having been a production guy and knowing what that's like and struggling and, what is that slot in the computer for? Are you supposed to will the computer run if you don't put something in there? And it was a 3.5-inch floppy. I didn't know. I've been that guy. So I always look at their perspective.
Well, Travis, you get to call it, man.
Well, I want to make sure that Jonathan and Trent, if you got any further thoughts before you wrap things up. Otherwise, I will go ahead and call it.
I'm good, man. I think Darren and I have the same mentality, the field first mentality. We've always been, and we've talked a lot. I mean, Darren and I know each other very well. I'm glad you joined us. He's a smart guy, very smart dude.
I'll bring a more manly beverage next time.
Well, I really hope, Jonathan, if you got thoughts that you do bring them.
My only thought is to say,
send it out to the rest of us to mix with ours.
Yes. My only thought is, man, Darren, again, I would say of all the people that have taught me tech, from a practical standpoint, you probably saved William T. Spader Company more money than any of those people.
I appreciate it.
And I'll go ahead and wrap it up because I do have very close personal experience and professional experience with both of our quote unquote guests tonight. Like full disclosure, we did engage Jeff Sample early on with JB Knowledge, and I've had several discussions with Darren. Both of those have definitely kind of formed my path as a construction technologist. So I thank you both very deeply, both again professionally and personally. So this was a great episode for both of us. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Agreed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks a lot.